If you're under 2000 elo, the fastest way by a huge margin to improve your chess is to work on your calculation skills. Here is exactly how you do that to beat anyone under 2000 elo. Because 99% of all of the games you play in chess currently are decided by who is calculating better, who is making less blunders, less mistakes. So the real question is, how do you actually improve this skill to beat anyone under 2000 elo? Here is how I do that. I go to leechess.org, I click on puzzles over here, and then you either choose here the normal level, that would be your rating level, or easier, -300, also very useful, and ideally you combine both of those. And then you try to solve those puzzles, but it's essential the way you do that. It's not like you need to immediately make your moves here and see whether you have guessed the move correctly or not. It's not helping you to improve chess. Actually, the process of deliberate practice, of calculating those variations, of thinking about both your active moves as well as your opponent's opportunities, that is how you do get better. And this is exactly how you should do it the right way. So here we have the position. You have here the task, it's white to move. And we are thinking about our opponent's king. First of all, we try to evaluate the position. We think about our own king. We think about the threats that our opponent is creating. And so the first thing to understand is what kind of a threat our opponent has. In this case, it's checkmate in 1, queen takes g2. Why it's so important to start with that? Because now we know that any sort of normal moves we might be making, like slightly improving our position, that wouldn't help because our opponent is just delivering a checkmate next move. Having said that, it doesn't mean that we have to be in a reactive mode now and we only have to defend. No, instead we should think what kind of opportunities we have to attack. First of all, always think about attack. So in such a case, when checkmate in 1 is a threat, the only counter threat we can create that is strong enough is giving a check, because then he doesn't have any time to give us a checkmate, and he would need to deal with our check first. Now, you consider those check opportunities, and only if that is not possible, then you consider those defensive moves, but only in this order. Remember, you always start with checks, captures, and threats. That applies both to solving puzzles as well as to your real games. Now, you generally spend more time into solving the puzzles than you do in real chess. A lot of people ask me, like, if I do that every single move in my game, I'm going to lose all of my games on time. That is true. Still, even having said that, I would advise you to properly think during your games, even at the cost of losing games first on time, but you learn so much. And then this process is going to be faster and faster because you get so much experience of doing it the right way. And then you're going to do it both very well and very fast. So we need to address those check opportunities, and if it doesn't work, then proceed with those defensive moves. Now, I see here 3 possible checks. The first one, and the most active one, is also to take the rook, but that would lose our queen, and we don't really have any opportunities afterwards, so we can immediately disregard it. The other 2 are rook takes a6 and queen to e7. We have to check both of those. Now, you always go in the order of the most active opportunities first. If you have a move that is a check and a capture at the same time, then you start with that one. So rook takes a6. If the king goes back somewhere to the b file, that's obviously a checkmate we are going to take and then destroy our opponent. So the only move we need to consider here is what happens if it takes back with the king. Again, nothing has changed. Still, the checkmate is coming, so we only have to consider the checks. Those are not reasonable. We are going to lose our queen. So the only move would be rook to a1. Now, we don't stop here. Obviously, we think further, what can our opponent do? The only move is king to b7. The situation is completely the same. We are rook down and checkmate is threatened, so we have to be as active as possible. So queen e7 is the only reasonable check. Now, if he plays queen to d7, we're going to just take it, so that doesn't work. If he's going to play king to c8, we're going to have a checkmate in 1. So the only move is king to b8. Really essential move to consider. Now we have 2 checks, queen d8 and queen a7. I hope you can still follow my variation, because this is the process. You cannot move the pieces when you play a real game. So now we learn to do that together. please always, whenever you see the first puzzle, try to solve it yourself, and then follow my decision-making process so that you can learn from it and use it in your own games and in your own puzzles. It doesn't mean I never make mistakes, I obviously do, but still you can learn so much from my process and compare it with yours. Okay, so I feel like I want to use as many pieces as possible, and if I play queen a7, then I kind of block my own rook, so queen d8 would be the first move I would consider. King b7, the only move. Then I have this queen a8 check, king to c7, and actually, yeah, I already see that is a checkmate, rook a7 in the end. I hope you can still follow it. We are going to repeat it one more time now, and then the only thing he can do is rook b7, and then rook takes b7 is a checkmate. So let's see how it works. First, we sacrifice the rook. He has the only move, otherwise we would have taken there. Then we have this check, we connect another piece into the attack. It doesn't matter whether you attack or defend, it's always and always great to use as many pieces as possible. So now queen a7, we connect that queen, because earlier it wasn't doing much on c5. Now we play the move queen to d8. Okay, he does that, by the way, I have missed it, because I was only considering the moves with the king. But now we can continue the attack with rook to e8. I have thought that, but I have blundered queen takes b6. Why? This is a very cool mistake. Like I said, I often make mistakes. You never want to be in a hurry. So I played rook e8 immediately because I thought I lost 23 rating points. That's horrible. I thought of winning the queen, but actually I can just take the rook on b6 for free first, and then after queen b7 I can, to save the list, go into the same line, but then without this rook on b6, which is obviously much better. So the key lesson here to learn, it's never too late to spoil your game, and that happens of course not only in the puzzles but also in real games. Always consider your opponent's opportunities and try to find the best moves first, calculate first, and then execute it on the board. Let's continue. Let's try to solve it this time correctly. So please, it's black to move. Feel free to pause the video for a second and try to find the right solution. I hope you have taken your time, because it's so much more useful when you first actively participate and then you compare your thinking system with mine. So as always, I start with checks. What kind of threats? Well, my opponent is an exchange up. By the way, it's very important to evaluate the position first, so you understand where you stand right now, whether you need to invent something very, very active, or you're doing very well and then you can just enjoy playing the position normally. Here we are in exchange down, and also I believe some pawns. Yes, 1 pawn down. That means if the game proceeds normally, we're gonna lose. So we have to think of something very, very active right now before our opponent can stabilize. And then we start with checks, captures, and threats. Our opponent's threat here is to take our queen. So nevertheless, it's not like we immediately think what the queen can do. First, think about checks. The only check I see here is bishop c5, like queen d1 is also possible, but that just loses the queen. And bishop c5 brings a new piece into the attack and does it with the tempo. So it seems to be very, very good. And also it stops this bishop from being developed, because if we move our queen first, then he is able to play bishop e3, and then no bishop c5 would be possible. So bishop c5 check. Now we consider the moves our opponent has. King to h1, king to f1. King h1 feels a little bit more natural, although, yeah, there are some difficulties here as well. Yeah, I think in this type of position, a practical tip could be, unless we see an immediate, like, really great move, apart from bishop c5, just to make it, because we are sure it's great to bring a new piece, and then we can see where the king goes, so that we can go from there. We don't need to calculate both. We can just focus on the move that the opponent is making. But you do that only in case you're sure that this is the move you are supposed to make. There is no better alternative. Okay. How do we continue from here? We again have a check, bishop b5 check, and bishop g2 check. So bishop g2 is more active because we take something. It takes with the king, because if he takes with the queen, we have queen d1. That would be devastating, basically checkmate in one. So king g2 is the only move. Then queen g4 check. The only, yeah, queen c6 is also a check. By the way, queen c6 also makes sense. Interesting. So takes, queen c6. Because if he goes back here, then queen to f3 feels very strong. Although it's not a check. Maybe queen h1, king to e2, queen g2, king to d3, and rook d8. And then we win the queen, although our rook is here. Okay, that is a crazy long variation. My main point is here that if you do that every single day, 20, 25, 30 minutes, it's gonna tremendously improve your level. You're gonna feel it in the games that you are playing, but please do it not just to immediately make a move, like I made my last move in the previous puzzle, but really take your time to think about it and figure out the right solution before you make any moves. Okay, so bishop g2 is very interesting. Bishop b5, let me consider that move before I dive too deep into that move. If he plays c4, I can continue taking it. Ah, wait, I can't. Queen takes c4 is a check. You see how important it is to think about your opponent's ideas and threats. So yes, bishop b5 I can immediately disregard. So either I play bishop takes g2, or I don't play any checks at all and I just play queen g4. Let me briefly check it because it does attack that rook, but let's say he just plays, yeah, he actually cannot play that to defend his rook because rook f4 would be killing him. And bishop d2 is also not possible because then the g2 pawn is not protected, and bishop e3 is not possible because I'm gonna just take it. So queen g4 does make some sense. If you, yeah, like g3 is also not a move because queen is coming to f3. Rook d2 is also not possible because rook takes f4. Okay, maybe the rook goes somewhere else, like to d3, for example, right? Because now if you take there, then he can just take it back with the queen. If you take on f4, gonna take it and try to use his rook to exchange some pieces and hard to say. Maybe not rook f3, maybe just king e1. Yeah, I don't think it's that dangerous. So again, queen g4, rook d3, rook takes f4, bishop takes, queen takes, king e1. Ah wait, no, queen f2 is not a move, queen f4 is a move, but king d1, like it's not that dangerous. And rook d8 is always on our opponent's agenda, as well as queen b3 check. So I think bishop g2 is more concrete. Let's try to calculate it till the end. King takes g2, the only move. Like the only move that we are scared of, because if queen takes, we are happy to win the exchange and continue our attack for free. So king g2. Now queen g4 was one idea, and queen c6 was another idea. Yeah, actually queen g4 is also very reasonable. But yeah, okay, we have queen g1. If king to f1. If king goes to h1, we just win immediately, queen f3. Now the only move is queen g1, queen g2, and then we take the rook, and that is a checkmate. So takes, queen g4, king to f1, the only move. Now we have queen g1 check, king e2, queen f2 check, let's say, king to d3, and now we have rook to d8. He plays king c4. And if we take the queen, he takes our rook with the check, and then he has two rooks and a bishop for the queen. It's not that easy. Not that easy. Okay, I cannot calculate it till the very end, but I feel that bishop takes g2 should be the right move. Okay, the puzzle, that is correct, and the puzzle actually ends here, which is very weird. Unless I'm missing something very obvious. No, it's just the beginning. You have to think what's gonna happen afterwards. Queen f3 is an alternative, of course. King e1 is the only move, but still it's not that obvious. Like, how do you checkmate here? Yeah, I feel like they haven't finished it properly. Let me switch on the engine and find out the answer. Yes, okay, this is still winning. Queen g2. I was curious about this variation. Ah, queen g6. Wow. Instead of rook d8. Rook d8 still winning? Yes, rook d8 is still winning because that position... no, I was wrong. I obviously have the bishop left, so that means I have the queen against two rooks and his king is so bad, then I agree that it's pretty simple. But even better is queen g6, and then if king to d2, then we play rook d8. And yeah, that is a checkmate. All right, I hope you have solved it correctly too. Let's proceed with the next puzzle here. Black to move, take your time and try to solve it before I share my decision-making process with you. I hope you have taken your time. This deliberate practice is what makes you so much stronger in chess, and that is the fastest way possible to improve your level. We are here a knight down. Again, that means that if we are making normal moves, we are going to lose. But we have some kind of active opportunities. We have some checks, queen to e1 and queen to h1, and we absolutely have to consider both of them. Let's start with the queen to e1 just because it's closer to the king. King a2 is the only move here. We continue with rook to e8, check, king to b3, again the only move. Do we have a follow-up? We cannot go to g3 or e3 because of this knight. We can go to e6 back, okay. Which means if they protect with the queen, then we will be able to win the rook. But they can protect like that, queen to d5. And we do have a check, but king c3, I don't like it really. It feels like they have a lot of pieces gathering there in the defense. Let's try another one. Queen h1, king a2, rook a8, king b3. Now we have queen to f3. But again, queen to d3. I don't know, it's not that simple. Of course, there is no guarantee it's a check necessarily. It can be also a very active move otherwise, like this move h2, for example. But that does allow our opponent to do something very active, like rook h7 check, king to g4. To say the least, he can just take it, right? Then his rook is a little bit offside. Maybe that helps with our attack. Fascinating position. Not an easy one at all. Maybe this queen e1 is in fact the best chance. Like that, king b3, queen e6, queen d5, queen b6, queen c3, rook c8, queen d2, queen f2. Wait, he can go to g3. And then I don't really have any checks. Yeah, that's not simple. I've got another idea. I can play queen h1, king a2, and now not rook a8, but queen a8 check. Because if he plays king to b3, I have... wait. I don't have rook e3 because of the knight. But I have rook b8, winning the queen. That is actually great. Wait, that seems to be winning. Queen h1, king a2, queen a8 check. Now if he goes back, that's just checkmate. And if he goes here, that's winning a queen. I like it. That is a very nice geometry. So you have to be open-minded. Yes, I think rook b8 is the best because now we are winning the queen and we still have our pawn to promote. So you have to be open-minded to the ideas you might have in the position. Okay, white to move, the last position. Please try to solve it yourself using the decision-making process that I have shared with you here. Make it your everyday routine and you're gonna notice how much stronger you become in no time. White to move. How can we win this position? First of all, the material. The pieces are equal, but I have a feeling our opponent has a lot of extra pawns. Yeah, 2 extra pawns for him. So we have to again be very active, not to lose here. We do have some activity, like we are attacking here. First of all, checks. Always and always start with checks. Rook takes b7. Well, that just loses the rook, and I don't have any active opportunities afterwards. Queen e6, queen d6. Wait, queen d6. I do have another active move afterwards, but yeah, just king to c6, and I can take, obviously, but that would be just an exchange, and in the end of the day, he's a pawn up. Definitely not a way to play for a win. So it seems like checks are not working. Then the captures. What can I take? Again, the same knight. We have already considered that. Doesn't work. Rook b7. Again, doesn't work. Queen d5, queen e6. Doesn't work. Checks, captures, threats. So many people ask me, what is the threat? The threat is creating an opportunity to do something very, very dangerous the very next move. For example, this move, rook f to c1, would be a threat to take the queen next move. So basically to attack something, but not limited to that. You might create a threat of giving a check next move. So right now you don't attack anything, but you create this threat of giving a check, of attacking your opponent's king next move, and that might be very dangerous. So rook to c1, the queen cannot go away from defending that knight, because otherwise we are going to just grab it and win the game. He cannot take it because we have enough defenders, so that's fine. You can play knight c4, but then it's very important that we played this rook to c1. We always want to connect as many rooks to the attack as possible. So rook to b7 would be possible, and that would be a huge, huge improvement. You would need to go somewhere backwards, and we have already won a pawn, and we continue our attack. So I think that is always very good for us. And if he goes somewhere here, how do we continue from there? Rook b7 is still not a move. Or maybe it is, because now we have rook c7. We have to think about it. If they take, we take it back. King to e8. Still not so clear, because they do have some checks in mind. But maybe this position is still better for us after just queen takes b7, because we are going to escape with the king, and we are going to create a lot of checks threats. Okay, so that feels promising. Rook b7, knight b7, and rook c7. But what if they just play... Oh wait, they cannot go there, probably because of bishop g5. f6? Yeah, not necessarily. Ah, wait, I just noticed that queen a1 check is not possible because we have the queen there. And rook c1 is also not that great because we have the bishop there. So maybe we just take that knight on b7 in that case. I feel like rook c1 is the most active move, and I don't really have an alternative. This is like a process of elimination, which is at some point very, very useful for you in chess, because you are eliminating all of the wrong moves. And if you have only one alternative that seems to be promising, then you are just going for it. Like this rook on c1 is definitely a worse move than this one. This one is not doing anything useful there. And otherwise, I don't see anything I can do. So I'm going to play rook c1. Yes, that is correct. And now queen a3. This is the decisive moment, because I do have this move, but I also have this move that I wanted to take a look at. Queen takes d6. He has to take back. Now I can play rook takes b7 check. Because, for example, if he plays rook c7, I can just take it with any of the rooks. So I think he has to go backwards. And now the problem is, if I take this queen back, then he has rook takes c1 check. But I can take first the rook on c8 with a check. He takes back with the king, and even though he attacks my rook, I take his queen back and attack his rook, and at the end of the day, I am a bishop up. I hope you can follow my variation. Queen takes d6, queen takes, rook takes b7, king d8, rook takes c8, king takes. Now bishop takes d6, king takes b7, and rook, and finally bishop takes f8. I'm bishop up in that endgame. Let's see if he can do something against it. Queen d6, now he has to take, no alternatives. Then rook takes. Now rook c7, I just take it. Rook e8 doesn't help, I just take the rook anyway, and the king d8, then I take on c8. Yes, that works. So that starts with the move queen d6, then rook to b7, and then very important not to take here of the queen, because he's going to be an extra exchange, but to take here first and then take the queen, and then take the final rook. And that concludes this session, even though we have made that mistake in the very beginning, but that's okay. If you solve all of the puzzles, it means it's way too easy. So it's okay to make mistakes. The most important thing is that you take your time, you focus on finding those moves, and then it's much simpler for you in a real game situation to find those right moves. Do this routine for 1 week and you're gonna notice extremely great results. But the real question is, how do you actually use these calculation skills in a practical game? In this video, I share with you my entire thinking system that is gonna help you crush anyone under 2000 elo.